All right, game number 3 of our Get Was Up content. Um, we have our third first turn for Smokes, and another hand that I'd feel kind of bad about if I was Stuff, particularly because rares are trash, not good cards, and because the hand has a substantial weakness to the left, you'll notice 3 1s. So if you're Smokes, makes a bunch of sense to go on the left. I do want to throw out there that, like, it's not like I like to go on the left. I play a relatively defensive style where I want to create things that are difficult for my opponent to take. And I like doing that, and I think that is one way to apply pressure. It is not like from a theoretical perspective, and you'd have to work on the specifics, and again, this is not my style. Like, you could imagine going on the right side of the board with the perspective of, if they have no left and we are going on the right side of the board, everything they put down will be easy for me to capture. Right? Going on the right is saying I am not posing a challenge to them, but they can't pose a challenge to me if they want to interact with any of the cards. I will always be able to deal with stuff. And I think this is usually the wrong way, but occasionally the right way to think. I just wanted to throw it out there as an idea I find interesting. All right. Per usual, let's check Stuff's captures. I see 2, and they are both from 4. So if they are plausible but not that good, this really might suggest to me that Stuff should play a 9. My immediate instinct here is go 9. You don't have 8, set up for 8, but also, unlike 5, which is directionally vague and does not force the game, we want the game to be more right facing than it currently is, and 8 does that. So my first instinct is go 8. Do we have a good card to go 8 in that sets us up? I guess not, but I still kind of want to go 8. Um, or at least that's my instinct. But the first thing we do is, or I like to do, is check captures. If we're capturing, I assume Smokes' idea is just to recapture an 8 with 2, 4, 4, 7. I notice if we capture with either of our cards, we have a 2 to the right. So either of our captures, if Smokes replies in 8, will set Smokes up with a plus in 5, and we, the second turn player Stuff, do not have a defense against that. So that's very annoying. The second thing we noticed, which we actually noticed first, but probably we should have noticed second, is we do not have a setup in 9. Do we have a setup in 5? Yeah. Don't know if we feel good about it, though. We can play 7, 5, 5, 1, and 5. All right, it's possible. Got to be a candidate move. I don't have to like it for it to be a candidate move. Reasons I don't like it: I don't think we play well off it at all. It gives us some play in 8 and 4, but we're going to hate trying to recapture that card from 2 or 6. We're not going to play well off it. It does not direct the game how we want it at all. So other plans. Do we want the game to be up down? Probably. I can't imagine we want it to be side to side. So I would suggest 2 is better than 8, but I don't feel great about that. I would note, if we go 2, we control 1 and 3. We don't have great cards to play there, but they don't either. That can go either way. There's an argument for going 1, but these cards are quite clumsy. I think my instinct here is go 9. Yes, Smokes can go 4, and you don't have 8. But if Smokes goes 4, maybe you just take safety in 1, and you sort of grab what you can get. And you say, okay, I have 1, and if you go 8, I can re-grab 9, I can attack whatever you put in 8. I might have just enough kind of defensive grabs to hold against a 9, after a 9-4-1 sequence here. And if I go 9 and you don't go 4, I'm starting to direct the game in a way I'm a little more comfortable with. So maybe I'd go 9 here. I'm not sure. Obviously, an unpleasant spot. Knowing Stuff, maybe he's going to play like 7, 5, 5, 1, and 4 or something. That seems. That doesn't seem very appealing. You could play 5-2-7-1 and 4. Like, how bad can it be? They play 2-4-4-7 and 8. You play like 7-5-5-1 and 5. And you have high numbers facing out that are probably a pain for them to take. And you have some decent captures, some decent strength left. It's probably enough to tie. So my candidate moves are chuck a random card in 9. Maybe with one of the 7s up, because if you play it with one of the 7s up, you have a threat to go in 8, whether or not with another 7 up, whether or not it captures 7, just because you're building a wall of safety. So my picks are probably like something in 9 is probably my favorite. I don't like going in 5. I could see capturing in 4, just walking into it and playing it out. I could imagine going in 2 or 3, though that's not really to my taste. Let's see what happens. He goes in 9. All right, I'm happy with that. I think I'd probably have preferred the 7-5-5-1 there. I could very easily be wrong, but I kind of like having that 1-4 to the left. You might say it doesn't really matter because it doesn't capture anything unique. It doesn't capture Smokes' 4s to the right, and Smokes' 1s to the right you have covered with the 3 at least. But I like having them covered multiple ways. I like having multiple ways to recapture a 2 to the right. We have 2 2s in our hand. So my instinct is 7-5. This card probably, the left value is a little more useful to us than the other better numbers on the 7-5-5-1. But I could easily be mistaken there. But the idea of this, I think, is good. I like this idea. This is where I was headed as well, which is we have a threat to go in 8, and if they go in 8, we have multiple L options. And Smokes doesn't even consider it worth flipping here, which actually means we don't have to go for an L in 6 because we don't have to recapture. Now, if they had taken, we could have gone 4 or 6, but this gives us, I think, a little more room to consider 5 as well. I don't know why I've taken Stuff's perspective this game. Generally, when I come in and there's a starter, I start thinking how to reply to the starter. But there's choices. There is 4, 6, or 5. All of them, I think, are likely to have good moves in them. How do we differentiate? I look at this position and I think I bet all of these moves are ties. Like I think any reasonable move in any of those squares is a tie, and probably with multiple paths to get there. So I'm having trouble convincing myself that this is a position worth spending a ton of calculation time on. But I would think very differently if I was playing. Let's think about 5 first. There are 2 moves that make sense in 5, 5-2-7-1 and 2-2-8-1. I notice 5-2-7-1 concedes a same in 4, so I'm going to write that one off, and 2-2-8-1 concedes the same in 4. Why did I only notice those one at a time? Who knows? Let's not consider 5 anymore. All right, we got rid of 5. It is perfectly plausible there's some compensation down the road, and that like the solver will be like, actually, that move ties easily, but it's not for us. You have limited time to spend. Okay, 5 is out. So we're left with 4 or 6. If you, however, have gone through 4 or 6 and are not satisfied, checking 5 more deeply, worth doing. You're never really going to have a win there, but if you haven't found a tie yet, not unreasonable. All right, 6, any of your cards could kind of somewhat plausibly go there. So let's check 4, which has more limited resources here. Either one has a 2 facing out towards 5. Neither of those can be comboed. Given it's so much easier to retake 2-2-8-1, that's probably the more appealing option. One thing that's kind of annoying for us is after either of them in 4, we never threaten a double capture in 5, so we don't quite force the action. I think her hand wants to go right. I think I'd actually start in 6 here. But maybe 6 is worrisome, because if you go 6, they can go 3, and again, they have coverage of the cards you'd want to put in 5. Now you could go 6 with a 1 facing left, such that you've created a new threat in 5 with 4-7-2-3. But they can go in 3 in a way that covers that, and that feels clumsy. I'm back to 4. but your recaptures after 4 are so bad because 4-7-2-3 landing in 5 is comboed in 6. Now I think it's 6. Now I think this is a much trickier position than I earlier thought, and now I think you probably chuck something in 6. Definitely one of the cards with a 1 to the left that gives you more optionality. Um, my guess is 7-5-5-1 maybe gives the most play, but I'm not sure. Let's see what stuff does. He does go 6. All right, with a 1 to the left. And now Smokes has a number of ways to attack this. The thing I was starting to get worried about was something in 3. Something I like about this move that was also what I was going for with 7-5-5-1 is unlike 2-2-8-1, it is not flipped by a move in 3. Probably doesn't actually matter. Because I was trying to think, can I do something that doesn't occupy 5? And if I don't occupy 5, I want 6 to be mine. But 6 will be whoever ends up occupying 5 will end up taking 6. So if we have to delay going in 5, it's not like 4 matters. Having 6 matters anyway, because it just comes down to who will play it later, not who has it now. Don't know if that made any sense, but did in my head. So I think 2-4-4-7-3 is probably the dangerous try, with the point that you keep 5-1-5-6. Okay, didn't go for it. All right, cool. Let's assume Smokes is right and I'm wrong again. But my point was you keep 5-1-5-6, and that means stuff can't play. Oh no! Sorry, I wanted 6-4-4-4 in 3. I think. But maybe stuff had enough coverage then, so maybe this is better. All right, let's see what's happening here instead of just getting confused. This seems like it's probably just a tie, though. I mean, probably everything is a tie, but say if 2-2-8-1 and 4, that makes it 5-5. 6-4-4-4 and 1 is tied by 4-7-2-3 and 2. Same for 5-1-5-6, or at least tied. Yeah, looks like ties. Unless I'm missing something real striking. Yeah. I felt like there should be pressure here. I don't. I guess there probably wasn't a win, in which case, like, stuff wasn't going to blow it, so it doesn't really matter. But this one I'm a little curious about. I haven't been curious on these games so far. Curious meaning thought, I bet something was missed here. This one, I still don't really think something was missed, but if something has been missed in the match so far, this is the game I would bet on it being missed. What card did Smokes pick up? Ah, yeah, Magic Mirror 2281. When I'm typing in the numbers, I have to remember what the numbers are, obviously. Maybe he spotted something I didn't, and there's some reason that he is better than 2281 and 4. So I really liked the move in 9. I think that is non-losing. And I think the move in 8 was good. This was more dangerous than I expected. There were 8 ties after that. I wanted 7-5-5-1 and 6. That was a tie. 5-2-7-1 and 6 was played. That was a loss. Yeah, this was a loss. Oh, but I am a fool. It was a loss because of the game move. So 2-2-8-1 doesn't work. Oh, 4-7-2-3 and 5 doesn't flip anything. What am I doing? Yeah. Oh, so Magic Mirror 4 doesn't win. All right, great job by Smokes. Terrible job by me. That's fun. All right, we're calibrating my current level of play. Maybe not what I wish it was, but that's okay. I think what we saw a bunch here was, and this happens when you're not playing much, is you're running on general principles and not specifics, and a player who is playing the actual game and running on actual specifics vastly outperforms you. Nice find by Smokes. This just didn't seem that dangerous to me. Um, so the question is what the difference is, or this kept being more dangerous than I thought. Um, why does my move tie, but this move doesn't? Because 5271 was a really useful card to be able to land in 4. Unlike Magic Mirror, it can't be flipped. How did I calculate this endgame so badly? Who knows? Really nice move by Smokes. Uh, okay. Not that this is the important part, but where do I think my play currently is? I'm not calculating, and I am getting very much punished. I've said multiple losing moves or not calculated the losses correctly because I'm just not calculating. So my calculation, quite bad. My instinct's not so bad. 755 and 1 and 6 being a tie when 5271 wasn't. I think probably can call that good instincts. Maybe you'd just call that luck. That would also be fair. Maybe I just got lucky, but I'm gonna say pretty good instincts. Tough hand for stuff to play. I liked the move in 9, and that was a tie. But yeah, running too much on general thinking and too little on actually looking at the position. And when I did try to figure out the position, I got it wrong. When I did try to calculate a line, I just sort of breezed over it and didn't notice that something didn't actually capture anything. So, okay, yeah, bad work by me. I think from Stuff's perspective, like, you might say, okay, Stuff made the same mistake I did. But no, this was a different mistake because Stuff played 6, which was losing, to 5, right? So Stuff isn't seeing 5 at distance. I, on the other hand, saw the move in 5 and concluded it was a tie wrongly, right? And when you're looking, the farther away you're looking, the easier it is to get things wrong. So Stuff got this wrong a move further back than I did, which means Stuff's mistake is much better than my mistake, right? My mistake is closer to the actual problem and getting, like, the problem has been shown to me and I'm looking at it and going, this is fine, right? I'm the dog meme. Well, Stuff is in a position that does not look like it's not right there in front of him. The house is not on fire. It's just ready to be set on fire. He's not evaluating. He misses the problem here, and so my mistake is much worse than Stuff's here. That said, I think really nice played by Smokes, and sort of continuing something I said about game 1, where Smokes had an advantage, but I think Stuff defended really well, and there wasn't really a way for Smokes to play better. So you might say Stuff had outplayed Smokes, but actually I think Smokes just did a nice job pressing his advantage. This was another one where I think Smokes did a nice job pressing his advantage and created positions which were clearly more dangerous than my instincts were thinking they were. Which is kind of silly of me because the directional weakness was so severe, but kind of after the move in 9, I forgot about worrying about it. But it really came back hard because this critical line with Magic Mirror ended up being played in 3, but Magic Mirror in 4, if they go 1, just having 4-7-2-3 be dead is a bummer. All right, really nicely played by Smokes. I think also a perfectly solid match by Stuff. I wouldn't feel too bad about this one. Um, yeah, and nice win for Smokes. Also, Smokes had hand advantages like every game. This is not to say Smokes doesn't deserve credit for this win, because if you have hand advantages and you play really well, then you played really well and you like deserve to win. Um, but it is also to say, like, I wouldn't feel too bad about this if I was Stuff. This is just like good player got good hands and played them really well, and shocker, they won the match because they played good and got good hands, and either one of those could be good enough to win, and both at once are very difficult to stop. All right, thus ends our video. Not so bad for our first time recording in a while. I gotta start trying to calculate things. I gotta just be like, let's calculate this move out exactly and just force myself to do it, even if it is not an important calculation. Because multiple times in these videos I went sort of, yeah, I think probably everything ties here. And then we start looking at it and it's like, wait a second, I can't just go in 5. They same me. So actually, let's quickly check that. Were those silly moves in 5 ties, or does the solver say, no, those were obviously losing? What are you doing? The solver says they were losing. That's good. The same wins against both. That's fun. Um, and actually, one more question. So, were there more ties in 4 or 6 on move 4 of this game? That's pretty important, right? Was 4 or 6 the better square? So 5, 2, 7, 1, and 4 did tie, and 2, 2, 8, 1, and 4 tied. So both plausible moves in 4 tied. In 6, 4, 7, 2, 3 did tie. That's a tough move to play. 7, 5, 5, 1 tied, and 2, 2, 8, 1 tied. 5, 2, 7, 1 was the only card that didn't tie because it was needed for 4. Ooh, that's tough. Incidentally, I would not say, okay, of the 6 plausible moves, 5 of them tied and 1 lost, and he picked the one that lost. That's terrible. I would instead conclude that was pretty tricky. There was a misunderstanding, but also got really unlucky that one of these 6 plausible moves happened to be losing and that happened to be the one picked. I would consider it something of a combination. Um, yeah, I think it's really worth trying to identify, like, there are people in competitive stuff who will say everything is because of what I did, and like every outcome is attributable to me. And this is just nonsense. Like, sometimes the pitcher or whatever other player does something really important. It was obviously out of your control and it had a huge impact on the result. And then there are other people who will not do this for wins. When they win, it is all skill, and when they lose, it is all luck. This is obviously ridiculous too. And this is a way to never have to find reason that you didn't do things right, because if you win, you certainly aren't going out being like, what did I do wrong? And if you lose, you are saying, well, that wasn't about me. So this is obviously terrible for any regimen of improvement. And you might say, okay, what if you did the opposite and said all wins were luck and all losses were skill? And that probably actually would be more useful, though I think it would quickly be impossible to keep yourself motivated to continue doing stuff. Though maybe you have very different psychology than I do, and that would work for you. But I think in general, it should kind of be like my opponents will play better some games and some days than other days, and I will get better randoms sometimes, and I will misunderstand and make wrong decisions for which card goes in a square. But my ability is such that maybe like 75% of the time I should make this call. And that means any one time you didn't get it right, that doesn't actually mean something is deeply wrong. This might be the 1 out of 4 that you get it wrong kind of thing. This is kind of vague talking, but it is to say, like, if you're in a coin flipping competition and you're really good at flipping coins and like you built your coin and it's weighted such that you get it 3/4 right, but this time you flip tails. That doesn't mean you like failed to weight your coin and cheat at the competition. It means like this was one of the 1 out of 4 you got tails. Now, this is actually something with stuff though. I have noticed maybe there is a pattern here on turn 4 or 5 of finding the wrong card to put in the square. It is possible there's a pattern here. If there's not a pattern here, if you're like, well, that was weird and I can't think of any other games that were like this, then it's probably pure luck. It might, however, be that stuff reliably identifies the right square to play in, but is not as consistent as the right card to play in. That's possible. I don't know. I wouldn't know. Just rambling here. Nice win by Smokes. Played really well all 3 games. And he's probably going, I bet I missed a win in game 1, but he didn't. He played good the whole way. This is a trait Smokes has, is if Smokes has an advantage and doesn't win, he will immediately assume it is entirely a skill thing. That he wasn't skilled enough to win that game, and that if he had been more skilled, he would have won this game. And if you check his games with the solver, what you will frequently find is the games where he is kicking himself for not winning, he in fact did not have a win, and he had 2 different ways to apply pressure, and he chose a good one, and the other was good as well, and he will go, okay, the other one must have been winning because that felt like a winning position. And this is a combination of 2 things. He is an optimistic calculator. Like, he will think he has a winning position more often than he actually does. But this isn't necessarily a bad trait because it means you look for ideas. I don't think being I think being an optimistic calculator has effects on your style that are interesting, but it's not like an inherently good or bad thing. It leads to interesting play, and a lot of interesting players, I think, are because they have very optimistic calculations. Um, but he is optimistic, and he is ready to blame himself for his mistakes. And I would say, in Smoke's case, he is too ready to blame himself for his mistakes and attributes too little to like luck or the cards randomly happening not to work out quite well enough to get the win. That he is too ready to blame himself for mistakes. But that's a kind of good trait if you want to improve, of being perfectly willing to accept that you've done wrong rather than finding reasons to justify what you've done. So I think Smokes there has a very good trait for learning and getting better at things, because his ego does not mean he can't admit fault. He is very, very ready to admit fault significantly more frequently than he actually makes mistakes. Where am I on that scale? I think I have too big an ego. I think I do a bunch of justification. Um, like, I am statistically aware enough that I know a lot of things are out of my control, but I probably use that to make more excuses than I should. I think how it ends up working for me is my ego kicks in at the start and I come up with why it's not my fault, and give me a little time and I will figure out why it is my fault, and I will then come to terms with it. But it takes me a little bit to do because I have a giant ego. Um, I think that's probably around where I am. Could be wrong. Anyways, maybe just an interesting question to think about where you are. Like, when something goes wrong, how much do you attribute that to yourself? How much do you attribute that to factors outside of your control? You don't have to consider that luck. I consider factors outside of my control to be luck from my perspective, right? These are things I couldn't control. Now, it's not like bad luck that when I'm paired against Delial plays well. But it is bad luck if Delial plays better than usual. I couldn't control that. It is good luck if Delial plays worse than usual. That also was out of my game playing control. Now maybe I tricked him into like not drinking before the match, and it turns out if he had drunk he would have played better. That you could say is a little bit in your control, but it's also not something related to like game playing skill. It's more gamesmanship nonsense. Um, but worth thinking about, I think, for all of us. Like, first of all, are you an optimistic or pessimistic calculator? I regularly assume positions are worse than they are, that I have fewer winning chances than I do, specifically that a position is closer to a draw than it actually is. I tend to be a pessimistic evaluator and one that assumes more things are tied than are. Smokes, on the other hand, is an optimistic calculator. And this means in certain positions, I will assume everything is tying and not look for creative options, and Smokes is more likely to look for those options. On the other hand, being a pessimistic evaluator has some benefits where I don't take certain risks in positions where I shouldn't. Right? There's advantages both ways, but we're thinking, where are you on a kind of optimistic to pessimistic type spectrum? Because that will really determine what you look for in a lot of positions. And then the other thing is, when things go right, are you attributing it all to yourself, or are you saying, noting that, like, okay, they made mistakes, that wasn't really induced by me, that wasn't all that connected to me, I just happened to win this game? um, or are you attributing it all to your own skill, which is wrong, though could be useful to you? And especially important when you lose, how much are you recognizing, here are mistakes I could be better at, and how much are you going like, okay, that was a really bad hand, that was tough to defend, and I didn't manage to this time, which also can be a really fair response. Just questions I think are interesting.